Hello, ngHouston. I am so sorry that we were a little bit late getting started today. It's 11:04, but we were having a lot of fun on the pre-show. So we have a really great show for you guys today. I'm very excited. Before we get into our guest and our topic, I want to go through our panelists. And let's start with the familiar ones, Lance and Bill. You guys want to say hi? We haven't seen you guys in a while on the show. What's up with that?
We're busy. We do things.
But you have like clients and stuff? You have other things to do besides come on ngHouston? That's so rude.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to call Kyle right now.
The switch to lunchtime instead of dinner time has been more disruptive than I expected.
I know. I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah, but no. So I'm Lance Finney, and Bill and I work for or with Oasis. Near
adjacent to.
Yeah, Oasis Digital, an Angular consulting company in St. Louis, and we are also both instructors with Angular Bootcamp.
I think
I really appreciate you guys.
I'm going to let that go, and
right.
It won't get any better if I try to help.
Yeah, and Bill is going to be on the big stage at ngConf. I won't, so you can see more of him soon.
What you got a talk selected for ngConf?
Yeah. Don't sound so surprised.
It's not easy to get a talk selected for ngConf. That's not a small thing. That's kind of a big deal.
Rachel is going to be speaking as well. Rachel Lacholi from Oasis Digital.
So. That really warms my heart. Yeah. That really warms my heart. I'm so proud of you guys. Congratulations. That's great. I mean, it's not an easy thing to get on stage at ngConf. That's hard.
Yeah, they're both on fair day, so I hope they're not at the same time.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we'll see.
Also, if you just slip the organizers like $20, they'll let you right in.
You guys are terrible. Well, I really appreciate you guys being here. For anyone who doesn't know, the guys at Oasis Digital and Angular Bootcamp are super, super smart guys, and they deal with a lot of Angular stuff. So they always have great questions, and we're going to talk about some. I don't know if I want to say advanced stuff today, but it's new and it's very good. Maybe not. Yeah, it's kind of advanced, but it's very cool. So I want to introduce, and I almost feel like I should introduce the speaker because the speaker brought this really cool panelist that I'm excited about. But I always introduce the panelist first. We're going to save the speaker for last. Okay, so Jeff Delaney, you're up. And I have to tell you, Jeff, I'm very, very, very excited to have you on the show. And I'm a big fan of yours.
Yeah, I don't want to let you down. I'm not too excited in real life, so don't get your hopes too high. That's okay. But yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I run a website called Fireship.io, which was formerly known as AngularFirebase.com. And that's also associated with the YouTube channel. I usually post, videos about Angular, machine learning, Firebase, and more recently, a lot of videos on Flutter.
Well, I think I speak for the entire internet when I say that we really appreciate everything that you're putting out there, because that's I was telling him before the show, like I don't even remember why I'm so excited to have you on the show, but I know who you are because you've been putting really cool content out for a long time, and I really appreciate it. So
yeah, thanks. I get like a ton of positive feedback. It's just like this awesome feedback loop that I have with making these videos. So it's
because you're great.
A lot of fun doing it.
Look, even Sean Paul Neckelman knows who you are. He says he loves this guy's channel. Q, the intro music. Can you play the intro music for your channel? Is it easy? Can you just play it?
No, not on this. No, not on this system I'm on right now. But.
You got to go watch his show for that, Sean. Sorry.
Could you hum a little bit of it? That'd be cool.
Okay, I don't know. I don't remember the song.
Boom, boom, boom. I think it does something like that. It used to go something like that.
That was really good. and actually, that's a good segue because now we have Zack. Zack is our special guest for today. So, Zack, you should introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Zack. So me and Jeff I first found Jeff's videos. That's kind of how I knew about his stuff. It was his videos on NGRX when he started doing those. I actually really, really liked those videos. And then I started kind of digging more into his channel. And like Bonnie said, there's like so much cool stuff on there, especially stuff with Firebase. So, yeah, I was looking into that for some of my side projects and really got plugged in, and kind of like ancillary to this on Twitter, Max from Angular in Depth just like randomly tweeted one time that he had an idea for an article he wanted to write, but he didn't have time to write it. And so I didn't really feel like I could write it yet, but I wanted to be there to see if he explained someone how to do this, so I could eventually write my own articles. So we actually there was a 4-person hangouts that we had between me and Max and Gia Lee and so I forget her name, but there's like
she's watching right now. You're in so much trouble.
I know. I feel really bad. but yeah, like it was. I thought he meant like 7 o'clock Eastern time, but it turned out to be something that translated to like 1 a.m. So I ended up showing up at this Hangouts at 1 a.m. my time, and it was really neat. Like he was talking about Angular elements, and I helped Gia kind of write that, just like editorial stuff. And I posted it in Jeff's Slack channel. And then Jeff kind of asked me about, well, if you want to write an article, here's a list of things I've been wanting to make a video about. You could write the article, I'll make the video. And that's kind of what we did. And that's how this article came out.
I cannot, and like my mind is so blown. I didn't even know that you could crowdsource a technical blog. Like because I do a lot of training and I do a lot of teaching and I do a lot of code and I write a lot of Angular and it's really cool stuff, but I'm just not comfortable writing technical blogs and I'm not good at it. I didn't know you could like pair program on that. That's so cool. This is like a whole new world.
Yeah. I mean, it was really neat to see kind of the connections inside the Angular community. Like that amazes me every time, just to see like these connections happening. And then, eventually I heard from Narwhal that they were hiring, and I sent my resume, and now I'm at Narwhal. So it's just kind of crazy, but
I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So I didn't, and now I'm just totally distracted because I'm like, wow, I could like work with another person to write an article. I never would have thought of that. That's so cool. Maybe we should pair sometime. I'm gonna reach out. Not right now. I don't want to like put you on the spot, but I'll be like,
sure.
Hey, will you help
I mean, we could start writing the Medium article right now.
I love it. This is gonna be so great. Okay, and then Jeff Delaney asked you if he could make a video about your article. How cool was that? Did that like?
Yeah, so Jeff gave me like a list of things, a list of topics, and one of them was Angular CDK tables. Which can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Cool. So this is what we came up with, and at work at the time we were doing a project that was like 90% tables. So Angular CDK tables was on the list, and I just kind of grabbed that because that's one of the things I actually knew about. And we started, I think I just kind of wrote up a quick example, and then sent him the code. And then one weekend I kind of just wrote up this thing. So it's been doing really well. Like I've been getting, I think I'm at like 1.5 thousand claps, which boggles my mind.
Not bad.
But,
well, yeah, and it's funny because I was working on something. What was it, a month or two ago? I didn't like. I think I had kind of seen you were following some of the same people, running the same circles, but you weren't like Jeff Delaney famous or anything like that. But I
don't think you get to Jeff Delaney famous. That's special.
I don't consider myself famous.
Whoa, that's cool.
Oh, neat.
I'm
all you had to do was come to Houston, come to ngHouston, and find out how famous you are, Jeff.
Okay.
But so I actually had a client.
We mentioned your name here in the Oasis Digital office, and if you notice, we've started accumulating groupies. So.
Oh yeah, because hold on, I have a Zack screen share on. We have Paul Spears just popped in on the Oasis Digital team, so everybody say hi to Paul Spears.
Oh, cool. Hey there.
Oh, hey.
Okay, so Zack, I was saying that I was working on a CDK table for a client. Shout out to Camille, who is one of my favorite clients. She's awesome. I was working on this CDK data table, and then she wanted me to implement virtual scrolling, which I was like, oh yeah, I totally got that. But then I realized that the Angular Material team had not implemented that yet. And so I was like, I don't know how to do that. So there was a little bit of functionality that I was trying to figure out when I stumbled across your article, because they're really, I mean, you're kind of pushing the envelope on like using the CDK data table in ways that it hasn't really completely been like, this is like kind of bleeding edge stuff a little bit, right? Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't know. I feel like the CDK table is actually really well suited for kind of what we're doing here. Like in this article, we pretty much just take the CDK table and we just kind of put Bootstrap on top instead of Material, right?
Okay.
So
okay. So this shouldn't be too terribly complicated. This is just the basic.
Yeah. So there's. It's interesting.
Hey, Zach, could you zoom in?
Sure.
We're getting some comments that people can't really read your screen.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lance. Lance keeps us all honest.
There we go.
You have no idea.
So it's the really neat thing about the API for the CDK tables is like you kind of just use arcs.js, right? And then you have sort of your table data. So I guess the stuff we're doing with that is kind of advanced. Like we can look at that a little bit because I think we use like behavior subjects, and one of the examples I want to show later uses like ngRx and like taps into the store and selectors to kind of populate our tables. But
hey, Zach, I'm sorry, I have to stop you there for a minute because Jeff Cross just asked a really good question and he made me remember. And thank you, Jeff, because I just realized that no, that was a good question, Jeff. Because we have a lot of beginners who watch this channel, and we all know what the CDK data table is, but we have not even talked about that. So just for a second, can you just back up for a minute and just say really quickly what is a CDK and what is a data table? That is a very good question, Jeff, because we do have a lot of beginners.
Sure. So the CDK is something released by the Angular Material team. So let's just go over there real quick.
And it stands for
Common Developer Kit, I think. Maybe Component Developer Kit. I'm not sure. Yeah, Component Developer Kit. That's right. So so Angular Material kind of has the de facto component library for Angular stuff. Like this is what the docs are written in and everything. And if we go over here, well, what's that?
Zoom in again if you can, please.
Oh yeah.
You have a massive monitor, don't you?
Thank Jeff Cross for that. I wanted this little one. He was like, "You sure you don't want a bigger one?" And I was like, "Sure, okay." Also,
your eyes must be amazing.
I have real good eyes and real bad hearing, so it's like so on screen here we have this is the material table, which is, if we look at like the examples in the API, there's it's pretty neat the way they do stuff. Like you're using these ng containers, and you kind of, instead of kind of going through how you would normally build out like your rows in a table using for loops and stuff, you're using these containers to kind of define your columns. So each one of our columns is going to kind of have this data associated with it. And so that data is coming from our row, and we say, well, I want to show the position inside of the TD for row X, right? So we kind of build out our containers and then set the data source up top. I'm being real hand wavy, but that's pretty much it. You just kind of set it off and there it goes. So that's the material table kind of spits out this really nice looking table that's themed to material and kind of does everything like that. But if you look at if we inspect this and kind of look at the markup for it, like the results is just a table, right? There's a bunch of classes on it that makes it look like material, but what the CDK does, if we look at the CDK table, it kind of just takes that same table and strips out the material part. So if we look at it, the table's the same markup pretty much. And we have some classes applied here. So what we're doing in the article is we take this table that's kind of just bare bones markup, and we just say, well, we're going to take some CSS framework that's not material and put that on top. And now you have a Bootstrap theme table, or you could use some other framework if you wanted to. So that's kind of what we're exploring here when we kind of set up our table.
Now, I am curious. So this shows that the columns are defined within the HTML or the template file. Most of the template libraries or table libraries I've seen define the columns in TypeScript. Are there multiple APIs? Can you do it either way, or is it only in the template file?
I believe it's only in the template file. I think you can do so if we look at our examples, let me kind of get there. So this is kind of where we specify. I'm kind of using the Angular thing and going through heroes here. So I just kind of take my heroes, I put the name in it, and I do this for every single column in the table. I think it's not all that uncommon for you to kind of like take a container and just put an ng4 on that. So you have a whole bunch, you kind of dynamically generate your different containers for this. And then you can kind of loop through all your different columns. But I'm not aware of a way you can use TypeScript to define that, actually. I could be wrong about that, but let's take a look at the API. Maybe there's a way. No, not that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I would think in examples, they would show an example of both ways if they have it.
Yeah, I think that let's try going over to the material side and see if they have any over there. Display flex, changing columns, endable rows, type filtering. Table. Selection. Yeah, there's a lot of examples here, which is really nice. Yeah, I didn't see one there.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's something I'll look into though, because that would be really neat to kind of define things that way. But I actually like the way you kind of use the template to define things there, because it kind of I think it kind of separates your data from your view, which I really like. So, and it gives you a way of kind of managing your data and then saying, letting your template take care of the concerns of how do I want to show this on the screen. So, yeah. So to kind of get into the TypeScript of what we're doing here, let's see. Did I skip over that part? Okay.
Yeah, I jumped you ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I used, especially when I started just getting into RxJS, I used behavior subjects a whole lot, because it felt like, probably more than I should have been. It felt like, have any of y'all played Smash Brothers before by any chance? The video game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt like behavior subjects were kind of like my C stick. Like it's an easy way of like getting into things and making you kind of dangerous. But it's probably not, if you're like playing professionally or something, it's probably not something you should do. Like there's better ways of doing it. And sometimes it's the right choice, but not always. I think I was relying on it way too much, right? So one of the nice things about behavior subjects is if you look at the API for a behavior subject, you can kind of just do like dot value on it anytime. That lets you just kind of synchronously take the value that's being stored in it and use it, wherever, which is really nice. But there's a lot of times, like I think in the example Jeff ran through in his video, he uses observables a lot more, where I use a behavior subject. I think that's probably definitely the better way to go about things, because you definitely want like Angular to kind of manage your subscriptions through like the async pipe. Because when you do in the way I do it, I think I subscribe to my behavior subjects sometimes, and then you're kind of left footing the bill of managing that subscription and terminating it when you're done and doing all that fun stuff. So pretty much what's happening here is we're saying here's a data source for our table, and here's a hero object up top, and here's a hero object, and so this is pretty much just an array of heroes. And then we have another behavior subject that probably doesn't need to be a behavior subject. This could have just been an array, but it's fun. So we'll make it a behavior subject, and this just has all the different fields that we're going to show in our table. And you'll see they kind of map to the fields of our hero here. So everything's kind of nice and lined up that way. And then we kind of, so that's kind of the step of setting up our data source, a real simple way. So behavior subject as the source of truth, really. And then we're walking through our template to set up, okay, here's our table, here's how you define a column. And then sort of this is how the way you iterate through your different rows. So the displayed columns, this would be nice if we wanted to like dynamically turn a column on or off. So if you look at our behavior subject for this, at any point we could call just next on this displayed columns and take out one of these things. And then our table would still work just fine. It's just that if there was a container here for, if we disabled type, that type column would no longer show up on our screen, right? So that's pretty neat. So yeah, we're going to go through, define our tables, and then, so in our example, this kind of gives us, a nice read-only view of our table, so you can see in this image. But we're going to add another column to it that's to just kind of interact with that data more dynamically. And so I just threw a level up button in here. So doing that's really easy. We just added another ng container and said here, this one's going to be called level up, and we're going to call this level up method, and we're just going to pass in their name so we can figure out which hero to level up, and we'll like increase their stats. So that's pretty much all you have to do in the template, is just add a new container inside of your table. And then we're going to, and then I kind of put like this map in here so we could easily just look up by name which hero is which. And that'll make it really easy to target them, to level them up, and give us like a constant time lookup for that. And then let's see. So then we take that hero, the heroes object. So this is our map now, and we subscribe to it. And this is probably one of the places where behavior subject would not have been nice. It would have been a lot better to use an observable and just kind of pipe it. So it would look more like this data source equals heroes.pipe, and then we'd map that to this right here. So we'd using the map operator, we'd turn that dictionary really of heroes into an array, and that's how we'd populate our data source. So but here we're using behavior subject, so we're subscribing to it so we can dynamically, automatically adjust to changes in it, and you putting that into a behavior subject of itself, which again, probably not the best way to do this, but this was a while ago now, so I'll blame it on that. And then we have just our level up function here, and that just takes the name. We're going to grab a hero from our dictionary, and I'm using the spread operator here to just kind of make a copy of it quickly, and then we're going to increase all of their stats and kind of stick it back into our map. And because we stuck it back into our map, and we're subscribed to that up here, our data source is being updated to show a new array, and that new array has the hero data with all its new stats in it. And so that's how we get here. And this is Stack Blitz, so you can actually interact with it and see that happening. So that's just messing with the Angular CDK part of it. Notice we didn't really do anything in terms of adding Bootstrap on. So in the next section here, we kind of do that. And you'll see pretty much all we're doing is we're bringing in Bootstrap, and then what are we doing here? Oh, we are defining superlatives. So that's just saying the highest for any stat. We'll I think we just throw a name on it, and then we know the highest attack is hero A, the lowest attack is hero B, and so on for each different type. And you'll see every time, so we're just taking that hero's behavior subject as our source of truth again and subscribing to it. Again, it's probably better to just pipe on some operators, but this works. And then, so we're still adjusting our table data source, but we're also adding to it a superlatives behavior subject that kind of keeps track of for each one of these superlatives up top, here's the hero that got that award, pretty much. And then inside of our template, we can just use the ng class directive and say if they have the superlative of highest attack, let's just throw the table success class onto that cell. And same for the lowest, we'll put the danger on it. And then I give them some interesting level up mechanics, but that's probably not worth looking at too much. So now we have this kind of nice interactive demo where if I level this guy up enough, he's going to get the greens in every column, right? So that means he's highest in everything, and you'll see this guy has the lowest, what is that, healing right now, so we'll level him up. And now this guy has the lowest healing. So it's dynamically, you know, adjusting to our data source, which we're adjusting with the level up. And it's kind of like this really neat machine that RxJS is providing for us that we kind of built, and everything just kind of works, which is really, really neat for the amount of code we just kind of went through. And then we kind of, next is going through and adding some common, you know, table features. I think all of these are covered in the material example too, but we'll add paging and sorting and searching. And it's all kind of the same idea, right? Like we're just going to introduce a new thing to this, you know, reactive machine that's going to remember, okay, this is the page we're on. This switched, so let's take our source of truth and run that through there and figure out which heroes to show on the page now because we're on page 2. Oh, we just switched to page 3. Let's figure out what heroes to show for that, and so on and so forth. Same with the search filter. I think we just kind of do a very simple, you know, look up through all the different fields to say what's, you know, which one has a match, and then just throw out all the other ones from our table data source. And then same with sorting. So we'll pick out a sorting function or a sorting method. So a lot of these I think are just, you know, who has the highest attack, who has the lowest attack. Let's just go over to the interactive example. So I think it would be, I don't know if it would be good to go through all the different examples in detail, but we can kind of see all that just being reflected here. So the healing, sorting by healing, that's, you know, just a simple function where we pass in healing is the one we search by, and we want to sort it ascending or descending. And that'll just, you know, source of truth, apply filter, map it out, and boom, here's what's on the screen, right? So yeah, does that all make sense? I don't know if I'm doing it justice or not, panelists.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool.
Just a quick reminder, because we have a lot of people in the YouTube chat. Questions, beginners are always welcome here, and questions are always welcome here. So if you guys are watching this and you have questions, you're allowed to just drop them in, and it's okay if they're beginner questions. You can drop them in anyway. We'll try to get them answered. Yeah.
Maybe I'm not seeing. Let me pop this out.
No, you don't have to see the YouTube chat. We're watching the YouTube chat, and also we have Lance and Bill in the YouTube chat too. So if we have questions, you don't have to. You've got enough going on right now, Zach. You're doing great.
And honestly, Zach, most of the chat right now is just people expressing their love for Jeff Cross.
There is a lot of what's going on with that. Like everybody loves Jeff Cross so much. How did this? I didn't know.
Well, what's not to love, you know?
I mean, I love Jeff Cross. I get that, but I didn't know he had so many fans in the ngHouston chat. But hey, where you go, Jeff Delaney, it's just a Jeff kind of day, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
I think we found the key, Bonnie. If only we were all named Jeff.
Right. So, yeah, Zach, I think you're doing a great job, and I think we're all following you. And you should. And I'm going to go back on mute. Okay. I was laughing at you a few minutes ago because you said something. You were like, you probably shouldn't do it like that. I was like, I just get a kick out of you. You crack me up, man.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at this and saying that this looks like a really good way to do basic tables, but I'm not sure how advanced the tables are. Like, it's kind of ironic. The blog system that you're using, Angular Depth, is sponsored by AG Grid, and this is kind of encroaching on AG Grid. AG Grid is what I know best, or at least have used most recently. And I'm wondering, like, I don't know if anyone anywhere has a like features matrix, like, you know, AG Grid takes some doing to figure it out. At some point, is this, you know, for how many people is this good enough, and you don't need something like AG Grid?
I feel like we have almost as much love for AG Grid as we do for Jeff Cross.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be like on that level, but I mean, AG Grid is pretty solid. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very solid, but you know, if there's going to be a free version that is blessed by the core Angular team, at some point, you know, like people who had looked at AG Grid for their simpler tables might not have a reason to. And I don't know where that line is now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. And it's also pretty hard to get the blessing of the Angular team. Like, even if you have a super solid library, that's like on another, like, getting the blessing of the Angular team is not easy. It's like getting the blessing of the queen, you know, it's not that easy to do.
Yeah, that's what's so neat about the CDK, right? Is because the Angular Material team built it, and it's actually tagged with the @Angular, so it is blessed. I guess. I actually haven't worked with AG Grid all that much. I know Max works for them now, so I know, you know, I'm not familiar with all their offerings, but I imagine, you know, they're taking care of a lot of this stuff for you. So we're kind of just taking a very basic block, right? The CDK, and we're just saying, okay, I see the API for this. It's kind of complicated. You know, you really do have to build your own RxJS machine. That's kind of what we showed here. But that does work really well, I think, with like common Angular things like ngRx or other state management systems, because those are all kind of RxJS based. And
I'm really happy to see that. You know, the RxJS observable world is where I feel like Angular is and should be. So I'm happy to see that is the backing for this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The CDK, I think, is beautiful, and the scrolling and the data table and some of the stuff that I mean, for any of us who've been around for a long time and we've done stuff like this before the CDK did it for us, I mean, it's capable. You can do it. It's just way more code. So they just made our jobs so much easier. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. Well, Zafar had a comment that he would be looking into more advanced stuff we can be doing with this. So this is kind of, because I had some more advanced stuff too, because I found your article when I was trying to apply the virtual scrolling to the CDK data table, which was a little bit, and it was just advanced because nobody's done it yet, or at least nobody's blogged about it yet.
Yeah. Well, the really neat thing about the virtual scrolling too is that Angular has, the CDK does have virtual scrolling, but it just doesn't work well with tables, which is.
But I did get it working with Zack's help. So if anyone is trying to virtual scroll on the CDK data table, let me know, because I did it for Camille. And then I can help you with that if you're trying to do this. But also we have more questions. Neil wants to know, how does pagination work with sorting, especially with lazy loaded pages, which is a really good question. But before you answer that, one more question. Zafar wants to know if there are any schematics support to jumpstart the RxJS machine. So sorry, I gave you two questions. So first, can we talk about Neil's question with the pagination and sorting?
Sure. So when you think about sorting and inserting, you kind of have to take into account sort of our data strategy for this. Like this example is really nice in the fact that we have all the data. We know we have all the data. So, and it's all managed inside the client there, right? Which is usually not where you're going to be, but it lets us do this nice thing where, you know, in our machine, we just kind of set up several other layers. So if I can find the piece where we talk about searching and sorting. So here's search. So this is like adjustments we're continually making to our machine. So we're using the combine latest, which kind of just takes several observables and squashes them into an array, so we can subscribe to that. So whenever either one of them changes, it'll fire, and we can, you know, work through those things. So we're saying, here's my changed hero data. and which we're actually not sure if it's changed or not. It could have not been changed, because the thing that could have changed could have been the search term. So we pretty much pass in those two things. Here's our dictionary of all our heroes. Here's our search term. And we're just going to apply this function. And then again, this works a lot better if we piped on a map instead of subscribing. But maybe I'll get a chance to update these examples at some point. So pretty much what we're doing here is we're building this filtered results array. So we're taking the heroes array, we're filtering it to say, well, if there's any hero, we're using like a reduce here to say, does it include the search term, essentially. So we're sending that lowercase. Does that include the search term we passed in if we set that lowercase? And if yes, we'll add it to our filtered results. If not, it doesn't make it in. And so what we're doing here is we're kind of adding another layer that we're putting into our table, right? So we're saying, here's our heroes, here's a search term, kind of filter it through that. If it doesn't pass the filter, it's not going to show up then in our table data source. So that's like one layer, and then we're going to take the additional feature and add the sort on top. And this is really just taking that array and adding another kind of just adding another sort after the filter. And then I think if we go to pagination, I think we might have done pagination. Did I do that first in the article? I don't remember.
So I think if I can jump in here for a minute, because this was a little bit confusing for me too, but once
Sure.
I figured it out, it actually kind of gave me even more love for the Angular material team because it's beautiful. But correct me if I'm wrong, because my understanding is, so you've got a stream going in, right? Going into the data table. And that stream, you're going to handle any kind of filtering, anything. So you're going to use all your RxJS operators, whatever, for manipulating the stream, filtering it, sorting it, whatever. And then from there, once the stream crosses over into CDK, they're going to handle all the pagination for you. And so because we have the beauty of the RxJS observable stream, we can manipulate that stream without interrupting the pagination. So the CDK, really, you don't have to, they're handling all of that for you.
I know that's not what I did in my example. I'm not sure if it supports that or not. So what I did, Bonnie, here is I made a new observable that was called data on page. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of had, it's like you started out with your sort of source of truth. You filtered it and you sorted it. And then you said, okay, here's the page I'm on. And depending on what's in that, let's show something different on the current page. And that'll get you there. It would be, it would definitely be a lot nicer if there was something in the API that supported that. I'm not sure it does. I think there's some things that the material table has that the CDK doesn't actually. So that might be something that maybe only the material one does. I don't know.
No, I think I might have confused myself because when I switched over, I had the data table and I switched over to virtual scrolling and I didn't have to deal with pagination at all. And I took it all out. I think I was just getting confused. But I think to answer Neil's question about how pagination works with sorting, basically, I think we're talking about streams. Right. Would you say that's a good, that's how it kind of all goes together because you have a series of streams and you have sorting as a stream. So basically you're manipulating the stream, you're taking a section of it for the page from the overall stream, and then you're update which section you've got what you're looking at. And same thing with sorting, right? You're going to manipulate the stream. So it's really, if you understand RxJS operators, then that's going to give you a better understanding, which actually segues very nicely into Zafar's question about how, if there was schematic support to start the RxJS. I don't really know the answer to that.
This, not that I know of, what we're doing here is really custom, right? Like we're kind of just building something from the ground up. So it doesn't really match a pattern. I think that would give you a nice schematic to jump into. I think you just can, the nice thing about dealing with behavior subjects is because it does occupy, memory itself just by having a place there. It's really easy to just say, constant x equals new behavior subject, and then you've kind of started your machine. That's your machine right there, and then you can just create other observables that pipe from that, and pipe from the data you've put into that. So I think that would be, I think that's just the way you would jumpstart into it. But going kind of back to what you said, Bonnie, like the metaphor I really love for RxJS is like pipes, like plumbing pipes, really, right? Like we have, you have, for us, we're using the sort of the heroes data as sort of this like main that's coming down. And then we have a little pipe that comes from that. And it kind of, you know, has the water flowing through the main pipe, comes through our little side pipe operator, and, you know, we'll filter some stuff out. We'll maybe sort things out a little bit, turn it into array from an object. And then we'll send that thing into another map that is going to kind of filter it out to only show the things on that page. And it's really interesting to think of your machine that way and think of subscribing to it as kind of turning on the faucet so we can kind of get the data coming out from that. I think that I really like that analogy. That's always how I end up thinking about things, especially now that, you know, with RxJS 6, I think they actually made it so, okay, now you put a pipe onto your observable and you just kind of like layer down operators onto that. So
I always say I'm the queen of bad analogies because I really like analogies, and I had not heard that one before, and I like it a lot, actually.
Yeah, there's an article on that that I saw.
I'll send you a nickel every time I use it. Royalties.
Nice.
Hey, I did want to mention, I don't know, Lance and I were looking at each other trying to figure out if there were any like RxJS schematics, and RxJS kind of being such an enabling technology for so many things. Like Zach was saying, it's so general purpose that I don't know what a schematic for doing RxJS would do other than like bring in the RxJS library itself. And even then you'd have to choose your operators. But there are a lot of schematics out there that use RxJS. Like the NGRX team has made some excellent schematics for actually building out an NGRX environment in your Angular app that, of course, is built on top of RxJS. So far, if you're looking for something like that, that may be what you're looking into.
Yeah, because I think that there's not really configuration for RxJS. I think that the operators, I mean, you know, I started out, I just learned a few operators, and then, you know, the more I know, actually, I thought I knew RxJS until Jeff Cross came along and actually taught me how it worked, and I had to start all over again because
I feel like I do that with NGR or RxJS all the time, Bonnie. Like,
yeah.
I still don't know what a scheduler is very well.
By the way,
there's so much to it. I feel like sometimes I get it, and then I'm just surprised by what I don't know. It's definitely like a learning curve that, like, it's like a cliff that always goes backwards.
It's funny because it was actually one of my earlier, and as far as this might be helpful for you, I don't know how much you know RxJS, but it was one of my earlier ngHouston episodes that was on YouTube where I had Jeff Cross doing the RxJS anti-patterns.
Yes.
And you could see the moment of humiliation on my face when I go, but I don't use the async pipe because I have to unwrap, I have to subscribe to it anyway so that I can get to my data. And he was like, "Oh, Bonnie, no." Like,
yeah.
Bonnie.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. With the trap I was falling into with the code I recommend on this article is, you know, I have all these subscriptions running inside of my component that I'm now entirely responsible for shutting them off and for managing them past that. Whereas if you just like have an observable, you pass that into your template and use the async pipe, Angular just kind of magically does everything for you. And it's such a nicer world to be in than the alternative.
For anyone who's watching this who is wondering what we're talking about with observables and RxJS, one of the better introductions I've seen is an old ngHouston episode with Corey Ryland. It's about a little over a year ago. He went through, and I still go back to that when I need a refresher. So
really,
I
love that episode.
I'll have to check that out.
So there's a couple of there are several. There's the super beginner, like if you really are not comfortable at all with RxJS, if you've never even heard of RxJS, go watch Corey Ryland's because it's a really great place, just absolutely non-threatening beginner. It's like really great. Corey is such a great teacher and he made it super simple. And then beyond that, if you really want to kind of level up from there and start getting into more, you know, like that's too easy, let's go to the next thing. I really, really, really loved Jeff Cross's RxJS anti-patterns episode because he was just like doing some like mad crazy stuff on the console log. And it was such a, like he took some kind of complicated stuff and broke it down in a very, very simple way. So you could actually see like how the different operators handle things. There was one point when, like, I think he almost jumped out the window because we were asking him all kinds, like, he's live coding and we were like asking him all this kind of crazy stuff. And then Thomas Burleson was like, yeah, it was a crazy episode, but it was really one of my favorites. So definitely you want to check that out.
It's really funny because when Narwhal first hired me, I didn't know that much about Jeff. So I think I Googled him and that episode came up. So that's how I knew what to expect when coming into the office with Jeff Cross every day. So.
Yeah, and he said something about going to the window, and I was like, I don't think he's coming back.
The window's right by his desk. So
and then there's one. So while we're on RxJS reminiscing, there is another one. There is another old ngHouston RxJS episode that I really, really, really love, and it was Dominic Elm's Reactive Snakes. And that one is a bit more advanced. So if you go beyond, the Corey Ryland is like the beginner, and then Jeff Cross, I say, would be like the intermediate. He's really setting the record straight on a lot of common mistakes that people make and what you should be doing instead. But then beyond that, if you want to just go watch Dominic Elm's Reactive Snakes episode, it's very cool. It's just like some of the really cool stuff you can do with RxJS. So yeah, so we just linked all those in the chat. Sorry for the tangent, you guys. That's
fine.
It's actually Zafar's fault because he's the one who got us started on RxJS. It's his fault. It's your fault, Zafar.
So I did have an example. So this is from a side project I've been working on that kind of uses ngRx and brings that kind of into the equation. Jeff's crushing ice and trying to distract me, so I'm I'm sorry.
Tell him, doesn't he know we're live streaming here?
We're live, Jeff. He could totally not be there, and you guys wouldn't know. So this is the idea of this kind of side project. Oh, he's gonna come on. I
don't see anybody.
Here, let's.
You got to turn off your screen share. Jeff Cross.
We can't see you, so let's see. There it is.
Hi, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm not a liar.
Yeah,
we love you, Jeff Cross.
30-second delay here, so. All right.
How does it feel to have so much love from the NG? He can't hear us. Ask him
how does it feel to have so much love?
Yeah, thank you for talking so much about me.
He says, thank you for talking so much about me.
But tell him Bill loves Victor, so go tell Victor. He's got to go give Victor some.
Bill loves Victor too, so y'all got to figure that out.
Of course, Victor doesn't come to ngHouston, so he should come here to get his love.
Well, I'll tell him.
He showed up and got his love.
Yeah. We need to get Isaac from the team on too sometime.
Oh, can we? Isaac, man, can we really? Can you make that happen? Yes. Right now. He's going to do it right now. Hold on, y'all. Isaac, get in here. I love Isaac, man.
Should I send him a link?
Well, I think we're about to wrap right now because we're almost out of time. But no, tell him I want him actually to come on the show.
Okay.
Not today. Like he's got to like sit in the hot seat like you did.
All right. I'll talk to him offline about that. But yeah, do you want to see that last example, or are we running out of time?
No, we have time. If you keep teaching us cool stuff, we'll hang with you.
I gotta figure out all my windows here again. So let me.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Jeff kind of wanted to show up, so I had to move everything.
Jeff gets what Jeff wants, man.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, can you see the screen again?
I like how Zach came on the show thinking, "Oh, I will give a straightforward presentation to people who will listen quietly." Yeah, welcome.
No, I welcome it. I feel like I do a lot better when people ask stuff versus just kind of rambling on myself. Can y'all see the screen again?
Need to zoom in, please.
Oh yeah. Let's go like that. Okay. So what this is this idea that I kind of bounced off Jeff Delaney here. It's like taking esports, right? And I watch League of Legends esports, and I never watch them live. I just kind of watch them on YouTube, and I want to know what the stats are, but I don't want to spoil stuff for myself, right? So if I ever look up the stats, it'll tell me what's the live statistics are And that'll kind of make it so when I actually go and watch the videos, I'll already know who won. So what this kind of tried to do is I took the schedule, I kind of like scraped it off of a wiki page and just kind of threw it into my ngRx store. And I am taking user data that I'm kind of managing inside of ngRx too. And I'm saying, here's my data, here's all my game data, and here's my user data. And my user is going to know which game he's watched, and that is going to affect the stats that I see, right? Which I thought was a really neat idea. And I've got right here working just real simply. If I click to show results for any one of these games, it'll kind of show me who the winner is. And so as I touch stuff in my schedule on the right-hand side, my standings table over here kind of updates automatically. And if I bring up the code for this, let's see if I can get this in here. Nope. There you go. I know I gotta make this bigger. And let's go to the TypeScript. Ending component. Right. So I'm doing something very similar here to what we did in the example. Only instead of kind of managing behavior subjects, I just say, let's bring in the store, and I'm going to pipe this standings selector from my store, and that's just going to be my data set that shows up in the table. And I also have my columns here because we still need those to say what stuff to put up there. And then if we look at the template, all I'm doing is saying, here's that observable, use that as my data source, and then just kind of throw things up there, right? So this kind of is a real easy way of taking ngRx, write in some selectors for your data. So selectors work as queries to that data, and just kind of mapping it in here. So now, whenever I mark something inside my user data, I kind of combine that. It's really great because ngRx kind of manages that machine for me in a really nice way, where I don't have to worry about subscriptions or because I'm just sending the observable in. I don't have to worry about managing that data myself because that's all kind of taken care of in the ngRx layer. So yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. And I could kind of show you too if I pull up. Let's look at the Redux stuff here. So all I'm doing, I'm just kind of throwing mock data into our store, and let's see. Oh, that works. Great. Cool. So when I'm starting up the app, I'm just throwing a bunch of mock data in there, so you'll see my actions like huge, I think, or maybe not. Oh, I do that all in the reducer. So anyways, this action is kind of just filling up the state. If I look at the tree, so we have user data, and the user data just kind of is this this object games watched. That'll just be the game ID and a true or false. Oh, and if it's not there, they obviously hadn't watched it. And then games is kind of just filled up with these entities. I'm using the ngRx entity library. So it gives you this adapter that kind of does all the interesting stuff for you. And so here's like a sample game here. So we have the red team and we have the blue team ID. And this is kind of cross-referenced with the team entity, which we'll have for each one of these teams. Here's just some sample name, some sample data about them. So their abbreviated name and their full name. And then, yeah, the winner, the red team, the blue team, and the winner is really the important parts here. So pretty much the standing selector, if I bring that back up, let's see, do I have standing selector? Here it is. So I'm just creating a selector here, and it's bringing in 3 other selectors. So these are all ones that are defined, but I think they're pretty much just coming from ngRx entities. Maybe this one not so much. So this is top one here, select user games watched by tournament. This is pretty much just bringing in all the games or all the user data that's relevant to the stuff we're showing on screen. So this is for this specific tournament. That's what these kind of parameters are here. And then we're selecting all the teams, and then we're selecting all the games, and then we're taking these three things and making a function out of them. And we do a bunch of stuff, and we kind of end up where we say, here's our standings array. And that's where we get this data as we're seeing it on screen, right? So then inside of my component, it becomes as easy as that. I just say, hey, whatever state the store's in, go ahead, grab those standings as defined in that standing selector, throw it up on screen. And then when we're in this view where we kind of see the standings and the schedule side by side, all I'm doing here in this action, if we look at it, I'm just saying, here's the idea of the game, that 5 right there. That's the idea of the game that the user just said they watched. So go ahead and add that into our user data. That pipes in through that selector we just looked at and goes through all that function and comes out where, okay, here's the result in terms of, this is how many wins they have, losses. It's very rudimentary stats right now, but it would be really neat to kind of continue this pattern down for all the interesting stats that you can show for this game. So yeah, that's that. I don't know if I went way too fast for that, or if that made sense. Do we have any comments about that?
No, I think that was very cool. I think it made sense, and cool. I don't think you went too fast, but I've been doing ngRx for a while, so probably for anyone who's not up to speed on ngRx, that might have totally fried their brains, but that's okay.
Well, what I think is interesting is a lot of what you talked about really wasn't specifically about data table. It was about the RxJS and then ngRx stuff that's necessary to feed the data for it.
Exactly.
Which kind of seems to be a standard theme in Angular these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Zafar wants to know if this is available in a public repo, Zach?
Oh, no, it's not. I kind of want to do something with this. So I'm not going to make that public, but you could maybe piece together some things from from the screen share. So
sorry,
I can maybe do, sorry, Zafar. I can maybe do like a proof of concept that's similar, but yeah.
What if Zafar reached out to you privately after the show?
Yeah. I can show. I'm happy to show some code snippets. And I'm actually using, just to plug some Narwhal stuff too, I'm using NX for this project too. And so there's so much neat stuff we can do. So I'm going to generate a dependency graph real quick.
And also, if you're not familiar with NX, go back in the ngHouston archives, because I think we had actually Justin Schwarzenberger on the show a while back to tell us what NX was. So that was a really good show, and that's in our archives.
Yeah. So NX is like this. It's one of Narwhal's tool sets that kind of facilitates monorepos. And if you look at Nitin's book on it, I think if you can like download this book for free if you sign up for Narwhal Connect. You'll get a link to his free book, and it kind of gives you best practices on how to use everything with NX. I'm trying to follow that inside of this project here. So I've got like my feature cells set up, and my feature cells are dependent on a data access module, which is then dependent on user access.
So all these things is module to module dependency or component dependencies. This is
module to module dependencies, and all these dependencies all these modules are set up through the NX schematics. That also comes from the NX framework. So and then you look, Nitin's book kind of explains to you the best practices on how to separate those into your different types of modules to make things really nicely modular and reusable and all that stuff. So it's really neat. You should check it out.
And James Henry has been posting links in the chat while you were talking. Thank you, James.
Oh, cool. Hey, James.
We love James Henry is like the classiest British guy, and he's super fun. And Sam and he actually took me and Sam around London, and we really loved him a lot. And he's like super sophisticated. And I like his accent a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he just put links, and also Narwhal has. I don't know if you guys know. You know what? We should come back to this because we should probably wrap up this episode because
Sure.
I'm 3 minutes late for another meeting. But
And let me just plug Connect real quick.
I was
If you
going to
go-
say, we do have to talk about that real quick, and then we'll go.
Yeah, so if you go to connect.narwhal.io, we have a way to join the waiting list right now. We're looking to open it up, launch it, and open it up in about a month or so.
What's it for?
What's that?
What is Connect for?
So Connect is
Your
this.
screen's still on too.
Oh, cool.
Oh, because you're showing us. That's, yeah.
Yeah. So Connect is this awesome platform. This is a video I think Jeff actually did to kind of introduce it. Jeff Delaney did this for us. But yeah, it's this great platform for really targeting like enterprise Angular. And some of the features we have is like there's a cookbook we're working on to kind of give you a bunch of common stuff you always do. We'll kind of just have these simple recipes to get that jump started, kind of like smaller versions of what I did in my article here. And there's also like topics that's curated by the likes of Jeff Cross to pick out like curated articles and stuff about really neat stuff in the Angular community. And we also have our live events. If you've seen those, Jeff and Victor get on and talk with really neat people and stuff like that. And yeah, and we're taking our courses from Angular Playbook and we're kind of moving them in here as well. So this is kind of like our one-stop shop for everything cool you need from like for Angular for enterprise. So
I love it.
It's really neat. Check it out. Go join the waiting list. I think it's going to be real cool when it launches. I'm really looking forward to it. I've been working on some of the features for it.
So the way I see it with the Narwhal guys, like if you guys are trying to, if you're a developer, not Narwhal, but like if you're not Narwhal and you're just out there like a normal person trying to write code and you are doing this at work and somebody's paying you, sometimes there's a certain amount of like stumbling through and figuring it out that we all do every day, right? And we've all been there. But sometimes like you have like a really important, like you might be at a big company and there's a lot of people depending on you and this is like a big deal and this is a high priority project and money is no object and we have to get this ship right now. Like if you're at that point where like there's no more screwing around, like we don't have time to like figure it out as we go along. We need to know and get it fixed right now. You're going to want to reach out to Narwhal because they're especially if it's like if they do a lot of enterprise work. If you're like a little, small mom and pop shop, you might not have the budget for Narwhal. But if you have something that absolutely needs to be done and needs to be done right and you need help with that, that's really where you need to reach out to these guys because I think Jeff and Victor were like the original 4 Angular team members or something like that.
Yeah.
Like they were on the Angular team before they started Narwhal. So they absolutely know how to do it. And so this Connect thing is basically just to give more people access to that kind of expertise. Is that right?
Right.
Yep.
And I think we are opening up like individual accounts too. So you don't have to have.
Okay. Last Dan Muller was on just a few weeks ago and he said you weren't, but now you are. And I'm excited about that.
I believe so. Don't take that as gospel, but I'm pretty sure like that's what this waiting list is for. If you go ahead and put your information on the waiting list, we'll email you once accounts are available so you can go ahead and sign up and get in the portal and check out all our cool content. So.
Okay, I gotta go.
Cool. Great.
I'm definitely gonna fill that out because I didn't know because Dan just told us a few weeks ago that you can't. It's only for like enterprise teams. But if you can get like a 1 developer license for Connect, I'm in. I'm gonna be the first one to sign up.
Cool.
That's so great. Well, thank you so much, Zach. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on here. I was very excited.
Jeff, you guys rock. Thanks for watching me.
Jeff Delaney didn't even have to do it. He just had to show up and be like, we just want your star power,
hey,
Jeff. But I do want to say, Jeff, since you're here, I have to tell you, I have to apologize to you because I have watched your stuff and I have consumed it and it has helped me a lot. But I'm really bad about like subscribing and clicking. And you'd think since I have a YouTube channel, I would care about that, but I don't. So I have to give you extra love because I never actually gave you any love on any of your articles or anything. I just read them and they fixed my problem and I went away happy without ever thanking you. So I have to thank you like 15 times now and tell you how much I appreciate the work.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, don't worry about that at all. I appreciate it.
Okay, and I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank Digital Oasis and Angular Bootcamp. You guys give Paul Spears a big hug for me too, because I saw he left the room. And yeah, that's it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
he had actual work to do, unlike us slackers.
that's okay. I really want to thank Zafar and Neil for a couple people that were kind of new in the chat that haven't really been. I really love the people who come back in the chat and participate every week, because I start to learn your names, and really I mean, I feel a lot of love for the people in this chat, because they're just really nice, and that's the thing, is we're all in this together. We're all trying to figure it out together. And if we're all being nice to each other, like, that's the only rule I have for ngHouston, and really nice people in the chat. So, and lots of Narwhal people in the chat today. So maybe that's why there was so much love there. So go and hug all the Narwhal people for us, Zack, if you would please. And Jeff Delaney, if you ever want to come on the show, and actually sit in the hot seat, you are so more than welcome. You don't even know how excited I would be about that. So reach out to me.
Yeah, I'd love to come on at some point. So I'll be in touch with you about that.
Absolutely. Yes, that's going to be so great. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah. Thank you.